Hey Colts fans, I'm JJ Stankevitz and welcome into another episode of the Colts Show, an Indianapolis Colts podcast. We are presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. Awesome episode coming up today. I had an incredible chat with Colts safety Nick Cross. He's having a great season, right? But like some of the stories he told on this episode, awesome stuff, great conversation. We're going to get to that in just a second. If you like the Colts Show, if you like all of our Colts podcasts, please rate, review, and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Subscribe to the Colts on YouTube as well. Quick change in how we're going to be doing these episodes going forward. The Colts Show mailbag is just going to live on Colts.com for now. We're going to just change. We're kind of changing up our recording schedule a little bit for this and want to make sure that I can answer those questions that you guys do have on Colts.com, but going to be taping them a little bit earlier in the week, so can't totally give you great answers on the questions that you might be giving. So all those answers for the Colts Show mailbag will now be moving to Colts.com. All right, we're going to get to my chat with Colts safety Nick Cross here right after these messages. The Colts Show is presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. Greatness in the NFL starts long before kickoff. It's built into the quiet hours of preparation and the discipline to turn insights into action. The Indianapolis Colts rely on Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PCs to turn preparation into performance. With real-time AI-powered insights right on the sideline, coaches and players can make smarter, faster decisions when it matters most. From the field to the front office, Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PCs are transforming how the Indianapolis Colts prepare, strategize, and win. This isn't just about football, it's about unlocking potential wherever the game is played. Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC, where every day is game day. For the first time ever, the Colts are bringing Fall Fests to Colts Nation. Enjoy a full day of family fun, corn mazes, hay rides, pumpkin patches, and more, plus Colts giveaways and appearances from Blue and the cheerleaders. The next one is on October 18th at Russell Farms in Noblesville. Get the details at Colts.com/fallfest. Beer lovers, this one's for you. Join us for the Colts Beer Blitz on October 26th before the Colts take on the Tennessee Titans. Your ticket includes a pregame tasting event at the Heirloom Event Center, plus your game ticket. It's the ultimate beer and football experience. Get all the details at Colts.com/promos. Experience the game from the Moon Drops Distillery Landing. Located behind Section 533, this exclusive spot includes premium access and a $10 drink credit. It's available every home game. Get yours now at Colts.com/promos. Now back to us here on the Colts Show, presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC, where every day is game day. It is my pleasure to be joined here on the Colts Show by safety Nick Cross. Nick, how you doing, man? You're having a pretty nice little season again here. What's been going right for you so far?
I mean, I think it's just the process, just, the day-to-day preparation, the film study, paying attention to the meetings, the walkthroughs, and then practicing well, and then, trusting that God will get me through on Sundays. So just trying to do the process right and know that the results will take care of itself.
How have you kind of honed that process? Because I've heard you're one of the first guys in during the week. We're taping this on Tuesday, this player off day. You're in here, to get some work done after you do this. What have you kind of learned about your process, and how have you kind of honed that over the last couple of years?
I say once stuff starts to work, I kind of just, I keep the main thing. I mean, I follow guys like Buck, Zaire, guys who come in here early and, get some work done. And, I see a lot of the successful players come in, even on the off day, and, get some extra film study in, get some extra meeting time in with their coach. So just things I picked up from different guys, big on taking care of my body, having a chef, massage therapy, hyperbaric chamber, all those things. And also, I've always been a big athlete junkie since I was a kid. So whatever I saw my favorite athletes doing, I was like, okay, when I get to that point, I'm going to do it too.
Okay, so who are your favorite athletes as a kid?
I would say, I was a big Sean Taylor fan, big Brian Dawkins fan. So last year when he came to training camp, that was a lot of fun. Ed Reed, I met him when I was in college. I would say, I know everybody's going to hate, but LeBron does a great job of taking care of himself. So, things that he does and the longevity he's had in his career, to be able to do it at a high level, kind of take some things from him. And, that's it. I just like to see good athletes, take their game to the next level. Great athletes continue to play great. and, try to follow in their footsteps.
So, like, how do you learn about those guys' processes? Because you can watch, like, their highlights. You can see Ed Reed making these great plays, Sean Taylor making those great plays. But, like, how did you learn about what those guys' processes were?
I mean, YouTube, what I'm saying? Like, LeBron put his stuff out there. I'm cool with Ron Clark, so he, kind of knew Sean. There are, of course, little documentaries about how much film Ed Reed watched and, him and Ray Lewis. I talked to Brian Dawkins while he was here and, communicated with him back and forth. So, it's different things. Sometimes, I wasn't the typical kid watching, cartoons all the time or whatever. Like, I'd just be on YouTube, okay, like, what do they do to work out? Like, what do they do for this? What do they do for that? And, it was a little corny when I was younger, but, it was something that intrigued me.
Did, like, your friends, like, make fun of you for that? Or, like, or was it like, oh, like Nick's just like different because you could tell he's really committed to this?
I mean, my friends in high school always like, man, if Nick don't make it to the NFL, like, no one else deserves to make it to the NFL, because that's all I cared about was just, making sure that everything I did was to make it to that point.
So, like, how were you as like a sixth grader, eighth grader, freshman in high school? How are you trying to like emulate those guys then?
I mean, I didn't start playing football until I was in high school.
Right.
So, sixth grade, I remember vividly. I remember when Adrian Peterson tore his ACL, because I was a big Adrian Peterson fan. And, they talked about, some of his workout regimens. He did push-ups and sit-ups every night. So I just go in my, bathroom mirror, do my push-ups, do my sit-ups and whatnot. And, it was just one of those things that when I started playing, I always just pay attention to, the little documentaries, the little short stories they put out on, whether it's ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and kind of read those and see if there was anything in there, or see if they had anything on YouTube. Okay, like what type of workout did they do, or like, and whatnot. So I try to just emulate those a little bit and see if it works. See if some of them were insane. I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. But it was good to see.
What was the most insane one that you were like, I can't, like that's even like too much?
I would say there were stories of Sean Taylor running on the side of the road, like with traffic and stuff. I don't think my parents would let me just go run on the side of the road like that. My parents weren't the little league parents. They, kind of just, my parents from the Caribbean, so they were big on the academic side, big on, character development and everything. So I highly doubt they'd have just woke up with me at 5:30 to go run on the side of the road. But not saying I won't do that for my kid when I have one, but yeah, that was pushing it a little bit.
Are you still like a lifelong learner with this? Are you still like in those YouTube channels trying to find, something different, something new to pick up on?
Yeah, I feel like every year you try to pick on something new, whether it's something nutrition-wise, something, body-wise, something film, or something even, practice or off-season-wise, still trying to refine the process until, it's a pristine process. I would say just, asking different guys around the league who I come into contact with, or, kind of, see, sometimes, look at their Instagram page. Okay, where do they go to train? Okay, like, what are they doing? Why are they doing this and whatnot? And, just to see and, put it away. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll try that this year.
That's really interesting to like hear you talk about this, because I think sometimes guys get into year 3, year 4, they become a starter in the league, and sometimes they think like, I got it. And it sounds like you don't ever let yourself get to that point of like, I got it. I have to continue to. It sounds like what you're saying is you have to constantly continue to evolve and improve that process.
Yeah, I would say life's about constant development, constant learning. Our old DC used to always say, you never got it, you're always striving for it. So it's just being able to continue to refine the process, know that the moment you think, Lou said it a couple days ago, the moment you think you've arrived, you start losing. So, just continuing to always have that chase for hunger. And there are always guys to look up to, even in the building, whether Buck, Zaire, Grove, guys like that who've done it at a high level for a long time. So just always trying to, be better in, like I said, any aspect, whether it's, sleep, getting to sleep, or, supplements or whatever, and just, always asking questions, always trying to get the best. I send stuff to Sam and Lee all the time, like, hey, like, I told him one time, I said, I want to come back to the Colts like a bionic human. They started laughing. They're like, okay, well, we'll get the best, whatever. So I was like, all right, so just trying to always be the best I can be.
Was that, like, when did you sort of realize, like, I guess, like, how that would impact your play on the field, like, in the NFL specifically?
I would probably say it started to show up my second year toward the second half, coming in early, making sure to take care of myself, started to show up a little bit. And then, I started playing a lot more my third year. And, the first couple weeks I was like, bro, like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it through the rest of the season. I asked guys, Mo was like, okay, what else do you do? And, he's like, I do this, get in the hyperbaric chamber. So I started doing that. Hired a meal prep person, started doing that. So, and it, kind of like kick started me again. Okay, like, I'm feeling better, feeling good, body's starting to feel strong again. So, once I find things, okay, it works, all right, let's try to build on that. Like, now it's like I have a private chef who comes in and cooks, every day, still do the other things and, better on my supplement intake, better on my sleep and everything. So just trying to constantly, it's a grind, you play 1,100, 1,200 snaps a year of, full speed football it takes a toll on your body. So to try to minimize it so that, there's minimal fall off is the goal.
I think this is super interesting because people don't see any of this. Like, all people see is the product on Sundays of you going and making tackles, making plays on the ball, but no one sees everything you have to do leading up to it. Like, is that something that, like, when you talk to maybe even like your parents or just friends, that it's almost hard to like understand what goes into it if you aren't the one doing it, almost?
Yeah.
Because I find myself being like, I don't fully grasp what you guys have to do to get ready to play. And like hearing you lay this all out is like, man, I still really, it's hard to grasp it.
Yeah, I mean, my parents always, they always tell people, they come to see me during the weekend or when a game weekend, it's no offense to anybody there, but, Nick has his own routine and nothing really gets him out of that routine. So it's like, I get my massage and everything. My parents come, I'm like, hey, how y'all doing? Whatever. And they're like, whenever you're done, we're out here just. So, it's good that they kind of let me, I don't think they fully understand to the extent, but, they know because it's like, they'll see different people come into the house. They'll see different people come in or come out, or they know that, in the off season I go out to Arizona and go train, or I go here and go there. So, they'll ask questions about, what I do and how I do it and everything. But I think unless you're truly in it, truly doing it, you really don't understand the physical or the mental toll that it takes trying to redefine and try to master your craft.
All right, let's talk some ball. What has Lou Anarumo sort of taught you about the way maybe you can impact a defense this season?
Lou has definitely been someone who, I think instills a lot of confidence in the guys. Hard-nosed coach, from New York. I'm always in awe of, how he can come in and just, grab control of the room. Great at teaching the defense. And then on Sundays, great at making the right calls at the right time. Someone who brought me in when I was in the spring and, pulled on my tape from last year, was like, hey, you did good, kept getting better through the season, but, we could take you to a whole nother level this year. And, whether it's blitzing or covering or doing, wearing the many hats that I wear, he's definitely done that. And, it's not like, the D coordinator, he kind of just stays away from it. He's in our meetings sometimes, listening, adding his point of view. So it's very nice to see that he's very hands-on the way that he is.
You've had a number of snaps where you've been like walked up, like to the outside of the D end. And, obviously you had the blitz against Miami that hit home, but what I've noticed is a bunch of plays where you just had like backside run support. How is just like playing up to the line that, as much as you have this year, maybe fit your skill set?
I like being around the ball. I like, being able to make plays. For me playing both, that close and also, at the beginning of my career playing a little farther back, it's definitely, back there can get a little boring, unless they're, throwing the ball around and whatnot. But, being up there and where all the action is, it's fun because, chance for, and it's really, I tell Cam all the time, like, look, I might do something up there, but I'm happy you're back there to clean it up if something goes wrong. So it's good to be able to have that freedom to play up there and just play free and play fast. And, at the end of the day, try to make an impact on the game.
You had a play against the run against Tennessee where, like, you kind of, it was almost like you were like, it was weird. It was almost like you were like pass rushing against Calvin Ridley. And you kind of got your arms in there first. You made first contact. You beat him into this, you pushed him back. And then you made a play on the run. I know you spent a lot of time around the D-line here. Like, have you just picked up on just any of their moves? So obviously they're not asking you to go toe-to-toe with a tackle. But when you get a tight end or a wide receiver in there, is there anything you've picked up on from like Taekwon or any of those guys that's maybe helped you out in those situations where you're close to the ball?
Yeah, so fun fact, when I first started playing football, my first position, I played DN. Like, that was my first, I always tell them, I said, bro, I played DN. I had 9 sacks when I was a freshman in high school. So, just watching them, I see them walking around and, they might be doing a little pass rush move here or there. And, I kind of just, jokingly would do it. And they're like, nah, like, you got to do it like this. You got to do it like that. Or, I kind of watch other safeties who blitz a lot, whether it's Derwin or Antoine Winfield, and see how they go and attack blocks and whatnot. And, at the end of the day, I feel like I'm a pretty, strong physical guy. So, the guys who are trying to block me aren't, as strong or as powerful to do it. If I'm going against a tackle or something, I might have to use a little more quickness or whatever. But I feel like, going against somebody, who's a little smaller in stature, it's, easier to use, power and whatnot. And I kind of just watch them, see what they do. And it's really fun to see. It's really amazing to watch them, their hand placement, hand swipes and all that stuff. And, see him or Latu, Taekwon, get to the quarterback. So I stay around them and kind of just watch and pick up on little things here and there.
So you started as a D end. Did you also play offense, or were you just on defense?
I didn't have any hands in high school, so they wouldn't let me touch the football.
You could play running back.
I could have. That was my first position I really wanted to play, but they were like, look, your first year playing football, we just need you to go chase the ball. Like, the ball go there, go get it.
I mean, you said you literally had never played football until high school.
Yeah.
Why did you start playing?
I mean, I always wanted to play. My parents were, a little concerned about concussions and all that things when I was younger. So they were like, look, when you get to high school, you can go out there and play. So, I feel like when they finally gave me an opportunity, I was like, all right, like, this is gonna be fun.
All right, so this is gonna be a tangent, but you had 40 scholarship offers?
42, yeah.
42. So you went from never playing football to 42 scholarship offers. You had, it's from everything. LSU, Bama, I know you committed to Florida State, Penn State, Notre Dame. Pretty much if you're a powerhouse school, you got a scholarship offer from them. What's your craziest recruiting story that you ever had?
Craziest recruiting story. Did I have anything crazy that happened? There are a couple where, like, for instance, I know my dad, me and him laugh about it now, but we were at Florida, and first official visit, it was their spring game, and they were playing whatever, little baby in the locker room or something like that. And, Christian family, Christian household, and we're in there, I'm getting ready for my little photo shoot, and, the music blasting, all the cussing and this, that, and the third. And my dad's Jamaican. He doesn't care about what anybody, he's going to speak his mind when he feels like it or whatever. And I'm just, 16, 17 at the time. So I'm just, I'm not paying too much attention. The guys are in there. The team is getting ready in there to go play their, spring game. And my dad's like, turn this music off. Like, you need to turn this music off. Like, it can't be having all this profanity in here and this, that, and the third. Parents are in it. So they turn the music off. And I'm embarrassed because it's like everybody there trying to get ready for, like, don't mind me. Like, I'm just getting ready for this photo shoot. Like, the guys are getting ready to go play, their spring game. And now the locker room's dead silent. And they're looking around, and I'm really the only recruiting there. So they're all looking at me. And I'm like, man, I got to go hang out with these guys later. They probably think I'm weird, whatever. So that was one where I was like, now it's funny. But I was like, yeah, I don't know if Florida is going to be a good fit right now. So, they're definitely, a lot. I had a lot of fun on all the recruiting visits and whatnot. They feed you to your heart's content. They take you around. You feel like royalty going around those campuses and everything. So it was a good process, a fun process.
So you went through that, and then you chose Maryland, which is not like this like powerhouse, right? You could have played at any of these schools that are kind of the blue bloods of college football. Obviously, it's close to home, but why did you wind up choosing Maryland?
Well, there's another story to that one, including my dad again. And, I thank him to this day for it. Night before Sunday, I was committed to Florida State. I wasn't really, they were kind of going through some troubles and whatnot.
That was like Jimbo?
No, it was Willie Taggart. It was that staff. Yeah. And, I had flirted with the idea of not going there, and I was trying to figure out whatever I wanted to do. I didn't want to go to Maryland. I wanted to go away from home. I wanted to go to a big program. the night before signing day, and I gave my dad this illustrious speech on how, I can go to Florida State, turn the program around, little old me thinking I could turn the program around by myself. And, he basically was like, man, I'm not sending you down there to go and, get caught up in anything. I'm not sending you down there to go get buried under all that stuff. So he refused to sign my papers to go to Florida State. So I was distraught. I cried the whole night, this, that, and the third. And, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not going to Penn State because I didn't like Penn State. And it was really just, Coach Locks had just got the job at Maryland, and he was like, if you really come here, we can really make all your dreams come true, this, that, and the third. And I wasn't really trying to hear all that. I was, really, trying to go to Florida State. But finally, I was like, one of my old coaches in high school, Josh Wilson, he played in the NFL for a little bit. He was like, look, I, stand by Locks and everything, and he'll make sure that you get to where you need to get to. So I was like, all right, my mom, always make sure my mom co-signs things. She was like, I really think you'll do well at Maryland. And I was like, I don't really want to hear that right now, but if that's what you think, all right, I will try it out. So, I signed to Maryland, and I was like, look, I'm going to go here, do what I need to do, and get out of here. So
when you reflect on that, then, how valuable and rewarding was it to have those 3 years at Maryland?
Oh, it was good. You definitely had to compete against yourself every day. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Maryland isn't an Ohio State or a Penn State and stuff. So, talent level, wasn't at the time when I got there, it wasn't to that extent. So it's really just, coming in as one of the better players on the team. You had to push yourself a little more. You really were competing with yourself, because I came in halfway through my freshman year, I was starting. So it was like, I've arrived in that sense that, okay, I'm playing. I'm just trying to push the envelope every year. Locke's brought in great coaches. Coach Hoke, he coached in the NFL for a long time. Henry Baker, he coaches at Temple now. So he brought in great coaches to coach me. And, they continue to push the envelope, push the bar until, I was able to get here.
So you were a kind of an early starter at Maryland. You get to the NFL, you're an early starter here. You start those first 2 games of your rookie year, and then, the decision's made to kind of have you take a step back. Was that hard for you to go through that? How did you kind of mentally handle that first year and into that second year?
Oh, it was definitely hard. You 20 years old, 21.
You're the youngest starter in the league
yeah.
at the start of that season.
So it was hard to be able to, do that. Obviously it was a lot. I come in with big expectations. I'm going to go do this, do that. And, when it kind of flopped, I was like, I'm out here in a new place, don't know anybody, parents, 8, 9 hours away, friends 8, 9 hours away. So it was just me and myself. And I was struggling. I was like, man, team was doing bad. I wasn't doing the greatest. And I was just like, I'm in Indianapolis. I've never been here before. It's starting to get cold, and everything. And I was like, so it was rough, coming in every day. And, again, the stuff, with head coach getting fired, bringing in Jeff Saturdays, losing, not playing and all that stuff. It definitely took a toll. But, after that season, my agent was like, look, we got to get you therapist because you need to figure out what's wrong with, not what's wrong with me, but how to get yourself, out of this. And, finally when the season's over, it's kind of a sigh of relief. So, okay, I can start fresh, get myself together. And now that I've gotten my taste of the NFL, now I know what I got to do to, make the adjustments and move forward.
What was that in that second year like, where you're on special teams quite a bit, and then you kind of get toward the end of the season? I remember that game against Pittsburgh, you have the pick, you start playing a little more on defense. Was that just sort of like you kind of been through it, and you're like, how did you come out on the other end of that, basically?
That's when I really started to be more, I feel like rookie year is more about the end goal. Whatever to get to the end goal. Whatever the goal was, it was just about accomplishing the end goal. And I feel like my second year is when I really started just honing in on, the process of the everyday, the working out, the film study, the making sure to take walkthrough seriously, to practice seriously, and knowing that the Sundays will take care of themselves. I feel like that was the biggest thing. And I feel like, at the beginning of the season, obviously I wasn't playing, but, I didn't allow that to discourage me, because I knew at the end of the day the work was being put in. I knew that at some point it would come to fruition. Just didn't know when. So when it finally started coming through, it was like, all right, it gave kind of the cosign that I need, the work actually, this this way of doing things actually does work.
Is it now rewarding to reflect back on that and, see not only are you starting and, getting a ton of tackles, making a ton of plays, but this team's 5-1, to have gone through that being your rookie year where it's personal, adversity, it's team adversity. And now you're sitting here in year 4, cemented as a starter with a defensive coordinator who says we can unlock more of you, and the team is at 5-1. Just like, how rewarding is that for you knowing your journey?
It's definitely rewarding. It definitely makes you grateful. It's definitely humbling to know where we came from because, were you here for?
Yeah, I was here in that year.
Yeah, and like in the past couple of years, I've seen a lot. I can write a book, about what's going on here. But it definitely makes you not take things for granted. Definitely got to realize, look, we're 5-1. I'm in a pretty good spot right now, but at the end of the day, anytime that I sit there and, feel a type of way about, man, like, I'm not in the best mood. It's like I think back to, I was sitting on the bench. We were 4-12-1, and, we're the laughing stock of the NFL. So it's definitely fun to see, and it's definitely fun not just to see like where we are now, but the process through it all, getting to know different people, building relationships with people around the building. And, at the end of the day, it's been a fun journey.
Could you see this offense coming this year? You practiced against them in training camp, OTAs, all that, what the offense is doing?
Yeah, I always knew we had the talent. Receivers, we have, all the receivers are great. Tight ends are great. The offensive line, Jonathan Taylor, the best back in football. Seeing Daniel Jones out there, everybody kind of wrote him off in New York as, this, not so good quarterback. I came and I was like, man, I don't know what y'all are, talking about. Real cool, real calm, real collected guy. Just went out. He does everything the right way. He goes about his business the right way, and it shows on Sundays.
All right, I want to get you out of here on this. Talking about all the guys you've watched, and picked up on their process, whatever, anything that they might do as players. You ever watch any Bob Sanders tape?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What do you see when you watch Bob Sanders tape?
Just an explosive ball of energy. He's always running around full speed, making big plays at the biggest moments. Definitely another one of my favorite all-time safeties, but somebody who, I feel like he learned how to play. He learned how to play in the box. And did it at a high level, and kind of, someone I watch, I always tell Walt, hey, at the beginning of every season, they pull up, his 2007 film or his 2006, his seasons where he was, a defensive MVP or, their Super Bowl year, and I kind of just watch how he did things, how he, played and, kind of try to take some things from there. But someone who's always around the ball, someone who's always making, play, getting his name called up out there. And, when the time came to make the big plays, he made the big plays.
So, like, before this season, every season, like, how many times have you watched, told Walt our video?
Every season I take, him, I'm always like, hey, just find, my favorite safety. I send him a list of, my favorite safeties. Hey, pull this season of them, let me see what they did here. Pull this season, or, hey, can you just pull their pull their best whatever plays and see how they did what they did, just to, get a holistic point of view. Okay, this person played well here. Okay, this person does it better down here. All right, and kind of just taking the bits and pieces from all of what they do.
That's awesome. Really enjoyed this conversation, Nick. Appreciate it, man. From Maryland, safety number 20, Nick Cross. Thanks for joining me here on the pod, man. All right, back here on the Colts Show. Great chat again with Colts safety Nick Cross. Really interesting stuff. I love that story about the recruiting trip he had to Florida. We're going to be back next week with another episode of the Colts Show here, an Indianapolis Colts podcast. We got great stuff all over our podcast feed. We got the Jack Doyle podcast with Jack and Matt Taylor. We got Inside Football with Rick Venturi. Those 2 episodes are already out this week. And then Instant Reaction with Casey Valier and Bill Brooks coming to you right after the Colts play the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday. Big game this weekend. We'll go into LA and see if the Colts can come back at 6-1. That's going to do it for this episode of the Colts Show, presented by Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC. Greatness in the NFL is built on preparation and quick decisions. That's why the Indianapolis Colts trust Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PCs, bringing real-time AI insights to the sideline so coaches and players can make smarter, faster decisions when it matters most. From the field to the front office, Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC is transforming how the Indianapolis Colts win. Microsoft Surface Copilot Plus PC, where every day is game day. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching this episode of The Colts Show. We'll be back next week. Talk to you then. So long.